Tech Quartet is a technical design collective based in New Delhi. Over the years, they have designed lighting and visuals for a wide gamut of performances across various theatre productions, dance recitals, music concerts, and art installations. Apart from live performances, they have also designed performance venues and offer technical consultation as well as ground support. Together, they explore newer avenues of technical production in an attempt to enhance the artistic process, both for the performers and the audience. We are delighted to have with us today the two founders and partners of Tech Quartet, Mr. Ankit Pandey and Abhinav Khetarpal. I'm so very happy to have you here with us today, and thank you so much for taking out the time and talking to us about the ongoing edition of Dhara, which is on the impact of the pandemic on performing arts. Please tell us about your company a little bit. How did you start it? Also, what was your background prior to starting this company?
I think, like, just the background, talking about the background, I think all four of us, like the four partners in the company, we come from the same college, that is Khetarpal College. And I think it all started back then because we were part of like the same play where, Anuj was directing and all three of us were acting in the play. And but there is something that happens in Khetarpal is the tech part of a performance is given a lot of preference. And there's a lot of workshops that happen around it, and it's treated really important, unlike the other societies and colleges that we were going to. So I think it's all started from there, and I think Anuj was the first one to graduate who started working with independent companies and production houses. This was something that was paying a lot of money. I recently learned that lighting design is also a profession that Anuj was doing and continuing to. So I think I just went up to him and then said that I want to assist you, and that's how this whole thing of lighting design started to begin. And then Abhinav and Transhu also joined us, and somewhere down the line we were also lighting different productions individually. But in 2017, because of some project which needed a lot of people, so all four of us went ahead and worked on the same project. And that's where this idea of a company began, that, if we are working together and, we will be working together in the future, why don't we just form a company and then just give it a name and function as a company. Tech Quartet, of course, it started with lighting design as the primary focus. But then as soon as we started the company, we tried to branch out into other things as well. So we design lights, visuals, as you said, projections. We also, do art festivals and everything. So there are a lot of projects that keep coming in, and we started learning a lot of things. So we started branching out post 2017 or 18.
I think it's also very unconventional. For whatever I've seen from a very outsider's perspective, at least in terms of Delhi theatre circuit, technical work is not given a lot of preference and priority, and that is somewhere also reflected in the sort of plays that are ultimately being produced by a lot of theatre companies. And I think given that we are providing there's a lot of emergence on people are now realizing the importance of technical work. So that is also being reflected in the kind of performances that are now being staged. So yes, I think that is very fascinating to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mention it right now, because last night we had this call on Clubhouse, which has become a new thing now, and we were exactly talking about something like this, that how this sort of technical design in general is a very underrated sort of profession or field, or a part of theater making or any sort of making. And we were talking about the fact that there is a difference between designing a play and illuminating a play, and that's a difference that people in theater especially need to understand, that usually what we also go through is that if Kunal is making a play, and then after the play is made and Saturday is the show, Thursday he'll call me and say that I have a play and I want you to design the lights. But that is not how it works. I will only work with illumination or like making it attractive looking, because I won't understand the play as you. So I think that idea of, you know, educating ourselves about like different things in theater making, I think it's sort of important. That's something that we primarily work towards now, for sure. Yeah.
Given that you have mentioned all of this about your work, and like it sounds very fascinating. I've watched a couple of plays that have been so attractive, not just because of the performances, but I've actually very much admired the lights and the technical aspect, and that has actually brought out a lot of the beauty of the play. It enhanced the beauty. But we come to the difficult question now, that in the past 1.5 years after the pandemic, like, you know, how has it impacted your line of work, and especially for you, like a young company, like what has been the experience like so far?
Uh, First of all, thank you for having us here. Really, really glad to be here. Uh, as you very rightly pointed out, the past year and a half has wreaked havoc in all our lives. But that seems to be a little more pronounced in our profession because as soon as the pandemic hit, the government immediately labeled us as non-essential, and your work didn't matter. But people, the artistic community on the whole non-essential, and okay, you now sit at home. But then I have a simple question to everybody who's been through the pandemic, watching OTT all the time, that if there was no art, would you have been able to sit at home? And again, in our particular profession, because we deal a lot with live performances, it's groundwork to a complete halt. And not just for us designers, but also for our vendors who supply equipment to various shoots and shows that we do. These are people who've invested upwards of crores of rupees in new equipment that they were supposed to get back or make back by sending the equipment out. But the industry, because of the pandemic, completely stopped. And again, more and more people try to sort of take towards the online medium. But that, as we know, because it's uncharted waters for everybody right now, and everybody likes to save a lot of costs. So artists, again, have found their way to sort of become relevant again in this new normal. Whereas us technicians, who've always been on the production side of it, trying to make it happen, trying to construct something from ground up, because again, gatherings are no longer acceptable, and generally everybody is taken to creating shows within their own living room, and for that they don't deem technicals is very necessary. Wahan par lighting becomes, oh, I'll sit this close to the lamp. But again, we've been trying to sort of make the best of the situation. For the longest, like Ankit said, we're all from the same college. I'm actually the youngest in the company, and like Ankit pointed out, Ankit started working with Anuj, then Pranshu started working with Ankit, then I started working with Pranshu and Ankit and Anuj, and suddenly we all found ourselves in this situation where we're effectively working on each other's shows. And again, so which is why we really value the idea of somebody introducing us to an art form, and we understand how important this art form is that we deal with, which is why we always wanted to get more people involved and understand at least that what backstage technicals mean. And so because again there were no live shows this time around, and we had a lot of time and virtually nothing else to do, we actually set out to create a course called In Focus. It's an online. It's actually the first of its kind in the country. It's an online performance lighting course. So we collaborated with Studio Safar and Leftward Bookstore, and we created a course consisting of, let's say, 11 pre-recorded lessons, and we introduced the idea of getting more lighting designers from the country on board to sort of come and explain their way of understanding the art along with us. So through these live sessions and through these videos, we sort of came together with this one course, and as of right now, we're running the third batch of it. So the first two batches were successful, but yeah, apart from work that we're trying to create for ourselves in a safe way, there has been virtually no work.
I guess the starting of the pandemic was also very okay-ish, because we weren't expecting it to go for this long, right?
Yeah.
The starting of the pandemic was like working perfectly as a break, because 2019 had been very hectic for all of us.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of work. We did festivals. We did we went to Serendipity, and there were a lot of things that were happening in 2019. So we were like, okay, 2 महीने का 3 महीने का ब्रेक है, समर्स में वैसे ही कोई परफॉर्मेंसेस देखने नहीं आता, तो it's fine. When like things just like extended till July and everything, and then we were just discussing that what is going to happen now. And I remember that conversation that I had with Abhinav, that what about work now, because पैसा तो खत्म होने वाला है ना, अब क्या करने वाला है. And I think that was the time when we thought about like not in focus, but like some sort of teaching, some sort of workshopping that needed to happen, because it was a long time due. Like it had been a long time due, because a lot of people had come up to us individually saying that I'm very interested in lighting, and I want to learn. And like we would always have the same answer that we don't have time right now to organize a workshop, because there were a ton of workshops happening outside also, but it was very like 2 घंटा workshop किया, and then whatever. But we didn't want to do it that way. We wanted to make it like slightly extensive, so that if you as a layman is coming to a workshop, lighting workshop, then at least you don't like learn enough to be a lighting designer, but understand light as a concept. Like right now also, I know that the light is hitting me from here. Like that's something like that we wanted to focus on, just to make this concept of light more accessible to people. And that's why we never really wanted to do it the way it was usually done. Again, performance lighting, it's such a visual thing, and doing it online was also something that we had to sit and talk about a lot. We spent a lot of months talking about how do we want to do it. There needs to be some structure to it. There needs to be some method to it, because people wouldn't want to understand lighting through an online medium. And that's where actually a lot of our pandemic sort of free time went towards, that just designing this workshop. And it's become a really extensive thing, just to understand, if you are working on a Zoom call or something, how to make that also visually more interesting. That, and again, a lot of things were directed towards just getting to know a lot of people across the country who are interested in lighting, who are established in lighting design, and just to make this network of lighting design slightly bigger. And that was the motive. That was one of the motives, basically, for InFocus. So yeah.
I do wish you all the best for InFocus. I think it sounds something fantastic. From whatever I've seen, I think more and more people need to learn. And it's not just about the technical aspect. Like you mentioned one thing very rightly. It's not just about learning how to design light, but to understand light. I think for an actor, for any performer, it becomes very imperative that they know how do they catch the light when they are on stage. Because some of the lights, you can still move them, but a lot of the lights, they get fixed before the performance. And then it becomes the actor's job to catch that light. And unfortunately, a lot of actors are not able to do it that well. So yeah, I think that is something that a lot of people should be aware of, especially the ones who are in the sector, irrespective of whatever work they're doing. Taking from whatever you have mentioned, I just want to ask you about these two things. So one, you have correctly mentioned. So in regard to actors or performers, so they have sort of switched to the virtual mode now, wherein some performances have happened, and it has happened on an online medium. And as you rightly mentioned, because they are doing it from home, they don't need a lot of technical setup. So like how has that transition been like? Because a lot of the standard format in which performances used to happen before March of 2020 and now have changed completely. Like we don't see the same kind of performances, and that has introduced a lot of changes in the sector as a whole. How do you deal with that, and like how do you think that is going to have an impact in the long run? Perhaps in a post-pandemic world, like however that look like, but what is going to be the impact of that?
Uh, Personally, first off, my response would be that through the pandemic, one thing has become very clear, that what we have been missing what people have been missing for the longest time is this aspect of working from home. If a meeting can happen sitting at home, let's make it happen sitting at home. And that's an attitude that I've seen everywhere. And of course, that is also an attitude that is going to sort of permeate itself into our sector as well, where, of course, performances have now changed, not just in terms of how they're consumed, but also how they're made. Because now people, if we were to, let's say, take an example of a play, now that was always created with an auditorium or a performance space kept in mind. But now more and more theater pieces that I'm seeing, again, through the black mirror of my screen, are made for the camera, are directed, blocked, lit for the camera. Which is why I personally think that that this joust with the online medium is here to stay. It is going to. I personally don't think it's just going to end in a couple of months or as soon as, let's say, this pandemic is over. Because what people have also realized through this is that they can virtually bring a lot of their costs down. Now, for them, that's cost. For us, that's livelihood. So it becomes a very tricky space to navigate. Because again, I understand that, first of all, nobody is right now in a position to put money into shows. People are dried up. We personally are dried up, and we've often faced this challenge where post the post the pandemic starting, if somebody is getting in touch with us, okay, we want to make this performance happen, and we would like you to do the technicals. They're also coming in with the mindset that because इतने time से कोई भी show नहीं हुआ है, so let's just keep the budget down. And उसका flip side मेरे पास ये होता है, this is the first show I'm doing in 6 months. Let's push the budget up. But again, that's not happening. Personally, what I feel like is that shows will be back, but again, the online medium is here to stay. Which is why a lot of now one personal part that we've also had to pivot in is that now not just lighting for performances, we've also started lighting for camera, where we've also started lighting for music videos, where we've also started lighting for films, and that is again one sort of avenue that we constantly have to engage in now, since the performances aren't happening at the moment. And I feel like that is going to be one change that is going to sustain itself for some time.
It's great. Like people are saving a tons of money to schedule rehearsals, to meet, and like hiring spaces and planning. All the planning is happening over Zoom or like these apps. But the rehearsals have to happen. Like it has to happen. Like, and like the people that I have met and I have worked with in the past, I mean, like they're enjoying experimenting with this new medium, but that this intimacy that you get with like being in the same space, that's something that is not there, and that's something that you can't do. If you're an actor, you're a director, you can still work online. If you're a lighting designer, I don't think so. Like like max to max, somebody for lighting design, they'll be like, no, acha main piche lamp jala dunga and that's my design. for lights, and it's rightfully so. That is the design, and people are considering that being at home and then making a play into consideration. So I guess it's here to stay, and like I hope that people save a lot of money. But I just hope that live shows also start, because man's gotta eat. As simple as that.
As simple as that.
So, like, very, very rightly put. Okay, so I'll just ask like one last question, which is like, so you, Abhinav mentioned it earlier as well, that artists were one of the large chunk of people who were considered non-essential workers right from the very beginning. So, in light of that, did you receive any support from the central or state government or any NGOs or fundraisers? And do you think this kind of a state support is crucial for the survival of performance art? Because this is a very difficult situation, irrespective of whatever one's background is. Whosoever is involved in the sector is facing a very hard time professionally. So, do you like what are your opinions on this?
Personally, I feel like even asking this question, you can sort of have a premonition of what my answer is going to be. There has been no help. Who's been helped?
Yeah.
Doctors and frontline workers are not getting help, let alone lighting designers of the country. Nobody, the government doesn't know we exist until and unless they need somebody to light up a historical monument or a big show as to have. And personally, because as much revenue as the performance arts creates in this country, like massive shows happen, a lot of films get made, and again, it is an industry, but it's not structured like other industries, and which is why it gets much easier for people to ignore us. And again, like personally speaking, from my point of view, I definitely feel like there has to be some sort of help being given out to people, because again, other countries are doing it. How are people surviving in Canada? Because they're getting benefit checks every month. And again, I am the sole earning member of my household. Like Ankit said, 2019 was good to us, and thankfully there was some saving that we did. But again, everything's run dry, and till the time shows don't happen, till the time performances are not getting made, till the time there is no money being pumped into the market, we're virtually sitting at home, and
I think
that's not really a good feeling.
no, I think that there have been some grants offers that I've seen, but that has not come from the government. That's something that I know. Of course, we all know that art is not considered as a primary, like an occupation. मतलब government छोड़ो मेरे घर पे नहीं होता है. So like if my mother asks me that what do you do, I still have troubles explaining to them what lighting design means. So, and rightfully so, they've never heard of something like this. I hadn't heard of something like this since till 2014. I can't blame it on anybody. So the toughest, not the toughest, but one of the toughest parts of our job is to explain people what we do. और मतलब हम लोगों ने तो अब lighting designer as an occupation छोड़ ही दिया बोलना. हम लोग बोलते हैं events करते हैं हम लोग. Events is something that somebody holds on to. But yeah, as Abhinav was saying, that I was talking to a friend of mine who stays in Amsterdam, and she is from Lithuania, and I was talking to her about what is happening and all that stuff there. And then she said that my country, I applied to my country, and if I need some money, the government will give us some money to survive, or pay my rent for the time being and all that stuff. And she's talking about Lithuania, not even Amsterdam. Netherlands is doing some other stuff related to arts, and generally the art scene is very sorted in the Netherlands, right? And like other countries, but and it's not just the pandemic. I think we just run on an assumption now that there will be no help from the government. There will be no help, let alone help us in practice. If somebody hears us, that is also like a luxury in this time. So I guess,
and
like, we've come to a point where we just like things are normal, and like we've understood that this is not going to happen, and we just have to do our own stuff, make it
just
self work on by ourselves. Yeah.
just adding on to what you're saying, Ankit and I right now can still sit in the comforts of our home, get on a Zoom call to talk about our issues. We have that privilege. But I know of technicians, live event technicians, who've literally gone back home, who've been laid off in tens. And these are people who primarily whose livelihood dependent, whether they're getting food or not, depended on let's say performances happening and the art scene, and that's completely dried up. You talk to these people, and they literally now they've cried, and everything's just gone to a point where they're just like, sir, अब नहीं पता, अब तो आ गए घर, वापस आ गए, पता नहीं क्या करेंगे, खेती करेंगे शायद.
And we're talking
And
about like highly skilled technicians, like,
people
technicians who we
here who
rely
have
on.
15 years of experience, a person who's worked in the field for 15 years becomes obsolete in less than 15 months. That's what we're talking about right now.
I think that's very powerful, and that is absolutely right. What you have mentioned, there have been people who, with years and years of experience, and suddenly their work has become obsolete. I personally know of so many individuals who are highly skilled in their area of work, in their line of work. Unfortunately, a lot of them happen to come from like a cultural background, like they're somewhere involved in some of the cultural performances or art forms, and it's just very disheartening to see the way things have happened in the past year and a half. So, in light of that, generally we at Itisara, the organization at large, do believe that awareness and action are integral for any sort of change. And in light of that, we have launched a petition on change.org that urges the Ministry of Culture to extend institutional support to the people of performance art sector, given that we are running an edition on this. And it's a real problem. It's not just something which is on paper, like people's bread and butter and their survival is at stake. So we have at least started this initiative. We do hope that people who watch this do sign the petition, and people who follow your work, and like people who genuinely admire a lot of your work. I know a lot of people who really like the work that you do end up signing that petition and helping us in our efforts and taking the petition forward, because if it does receive a lot of momentum from the ground and people do see, I think change can happen, though it's a little far-fetched right now because the sort of priorities that a lot of these ministries have set. But again, like these are the ministries with no lack of funds, and it just needs to be allocated in a better manner, especially the kind of times that we are living in.
There also needs to be a stronger intent for that to happen. Because, like you very rightly pointed out, that there is no lack of fund. There is probably a lack of thought, a lack of acknowledgement that, okay, this is a group of people who need help currently. Because the situation has been SOS for a very long time. And again, like we said, we're still at least privileged to be talking about it. There are people who are living it to its full extent. So again, I really appreciate the petition that you guys have started, and again, we'd love to sign that.
No, thank you so very much for taking out the time. Like, it has been wonderful speaking to you. It has been a very interesting. It has been a very interesting interview for me to learn about so many things regarding the technical side. I do have a very small background in theatre, but hearing about all the experiences that you have gained, and I wish you all the best for In Focus. I really hope it goes very far. This is something that we really need. Like anybody who watches stays or like is somewhere related to it, not just stays, like any sort of performances. That is something that like people need to be more appreciative of, and something that you completely get it. It's new, it's emerging, but it's here to stay. And I hope that it's going to stay for long. Thank you so much for taking out the time, and I
Thank
really
you,
appreciate
thank
Thank
you.
you.
We
Thank
really
you to all.
appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. It's like, thank you,
like
thank you.
it's been my pleasure.
Thanks for watching our videos. We work hard to make sure you keep coming back for the content we produce. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to our channel by clicking the bell icon below.